She's all ready, Captain.
Thanks, Billy. There's not like any town I've ever been in before. People die or disappear 6 times the national average. And that's just grown-ups. Kids are worse. Way worse. We all float down here.
I saw something. There was this
Clown. Yeah, I saw him too.
Look. It's all connected by the sewers. That's where it lives. What happened? Bill?
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too.
All right, this is The Script, the podcast for screenwriters by screenwriters, the deepest story analysis anywhere on the internet. At The Script, we believe story moves pages, story moves product, and story moves people. I'm your host today, Alka Kushalani, and joining me is Christina Leith-Malin.
Hey, Alka.
And today we're going to be talking about
It.
Yay! This is new film. You might have heard of it. It's directed by Andy Muschietti. Something, does that sound right?
We're going to go with that. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to let you stick with that right there.
Screenplay by Chase Palmer, Cary Fukunaga, Gary Dauberman. Okay, and that was when Cary Fukunaga, thank you, was going to direct this film.
Yep.
Correct? So that's when he took his pass and got a writing credit out of it.
Well, I think he was also going to be on Dark Tower, but he didn't agree with the studios. He left Dark Tower and went to this. And
Everything
we'll get into
suffered,
that. Yeah,
and
for sure.
everything suffered.
No. Everything was wonderful.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, should we just do like initial impressions?
I feel like we're going to fight, and I feel sad that you're going to be wrong about everything, but, you know, it is what it is.
Okay.
So David Negrin hosts the show, and we should probably do 2 up, 2 down to get us into fighting.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Host, would you like to lead, or do you want me to lead?
I want you to lead.
Okay. So 2 ups and 2 downs. I think it was an awesome movie. I also think that this was closer to the book because there wasn't a television network to censor them, so it was a lot more violent, a lot scarier. I loved the chemistry with the kids. I have so many ups, so I'll give you 2 good ups. The kids all were believable. They were the right amount of snark for 2017. Nothing was like dated. Nothing was corny. They just felt like they all got along. And the girl wasn't a standout. She fell in just perfect. I loved the cast completely. Gosh, it's gonna be hard finding 2 downs. Down. I'm used to Netflix binging, so I would have loved part 2 to come out like a week later. So knowing I have to wait for part 2, I know you're like, that's not really down, but it is because I thought it was really well done. And gosh, another down. I wish the the African American young character, his backstory, and kind of some of the racial implications about like the whole burning and his father have been fleshed out just a little bit more. But other than that, I think it was a really good start. I loved it.
Okay, well that's good because I do.
You can
love
rethink
it.
about loving
No.
it now.
I feel like this film was like it felt like a hangover from. David's not going to help you tonight. Okay?
Just like David.
First of all, David
would agree with me, but we'll just.
But he, I know he would agree with me when I say that this felt like a hangover from like the summer. This felt like a summer movie. They were like,
oh yeah.
It was like set piece after set piece after set piece. There was a lot of like zhuzhing at the corners. It was like wall to wall stuff, and I'm not talking relationships. No, they were, the relationships. I feel like they were they were compelling.
Yeah,
and that's one of my ops.
Yep.
But I feel like we didn't. Every time we had one of these like sweet moments, where you really got into what. Like this dynamic between
kids on the block. Come on.
Yeah, that kid was a heartbreaker. That little Ben.
Ben was.
And there was just like such
character.
longing in that character. There was just such, like you could feel his loneliness being the only, like the new kid. Yeah. You could see like him watching Bev and Bill and just, kind of like longing for this kind of connection with her, but knowing.
So is that an up?
That's no. I liked that relationship.
Okay, so
and I also feel like this film, I like what it's about. I think it really captures the, how everything is scary in childhood. How everything,
that's the whole idea.
Water, the dark, a painting, a parent,
a clown.
germs, clowns.
Yeah,
Clowns are scary.
Scary painting.
And what's interesting is like where it does go kind of deep, is that. This character, this Pennywise the clown, he knows them so well. Like in every one of these scenarios where these children are like scared out of their wits, it's like, it's exactly the right thing. It's exactly the thing that will turn the screw on that child's psychology. And I think that's really, that's really what works. And I don't know whether that's
You're loving
King.
it. Just
no.
You're
I don't know whether that's King or,
That's the kind of the premise. We're dealing with phobias, with fear, and how to address them.
And that's what this film's about. It's about fear.
Sure.
It's about fear itself.
Yep.
And
agreed.
My down
You're totally coming
is
around.
so. I've got one down that is like its total own category. So I'm gonna.
Are you trying to shut it down with a down?
My down has like 5 bullet points.
Oh, stop.
I'm not kidding you. It's 5 bullet points. I'm going to get through them all.
I'm sorry, Stephen King lovers out there.
So I'm going to say the simplest thing first. I'm not going to do that big down first. I'm going to do Pennywise the clown looks fantastic.
Amazing.
This is like beautiful
work
design here. And, but he is like a James Bond villain. You know what I mean? In some ways, he's like, sometimes he kills them and sometimes he doesn't. And it's like, if I was Pennywise, I would not like be so close to some of them and let them go. Like, I don't understand the rationale.
You're saying more Austin Powers than James Bond, but okay, fine.
But it's like that, that Saturday Night Live had that like,
like how close is he? Because like, okay, I'll give it to you.
And that is my big down. You know what?
Yeah.
You got exactly my big down. Is what are the rules of this universe? I'm going to tell you. They are so inconsistent, okay? Pennywise seems to feed every 27 years. Why?
Yep.
Well, we don't
like
get to that yet, okay?
Yep. They have a clock.
But does he feed on them? Or does he want them for this like lair where they just float around, right? And what about that light? What's the deal with the light? Right? How does that figure into some of them and not to others? It's like, it's all over the place.
And it's not completely all over the place, but I do agree with you, like with the first kill the little brother and the arms dismembered, and then he takes them and disappears. There's blood everywhere. But is he a floating body, or was that because he was hungry?
Like,
I
where
get
did
that,
they,
yeah.
what is going on here? Is he eating them? Is he floating them? And
Well, there's also the whole...
Why that, like, that
the book
installation
and the
of
whole idea
pain.
of like a celestial being. He's like a super demon from another planet or another galaxy. So I don't know that they want to flesh that out here or make it so sci-fi or just stick right in the granular idea of terror and fears. But I know the book does reference kind of a sci-fi element that's like bigger than the universe, kind of.
Okay.
They don't do that here,
But
they also don't do the spider here. But
I don't think that answers the question of why this way this time and that way the other time. And I'm going to say sometimes they're together and they're safe together and they kind of reference that. But what about the times when they're together and they're still not safe? Like in that slideshow, which is probably the best little...
That was a great
I
moment.
mean, that's why I wanted to see the film. I saw that in the trailer and that just looked...
It was amazing.
Like dope.
But see, the thing, it totally was dope. They reference the fact that whether together or separate, when they're together and they're not afraid, they're strong. When they're
Right.
together and they're afraid, so like when they do the slides, they're all freaking out. And
Right.
what I will give you is why opening the door did that stop? Like I would have been more impressed if he still was coming at her and someone screamed, "Stop being afraid," or something that triggered them
Right.
changing
but
their
it was
their
like
mood.
daylight at that moment.
I
It
don't
was
know
like,
about the daylight. I'll give you. I'm not sure.
it was
I think
like
that's
all of
just
a
kind of a
sudden-
horror trope, more so of like dark versus light. As light is your savior, which that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, but but they don't ever give us those rules, right? And then it's like if they're afraid, they
do.
die.
They're just not strong rules.
if
If they're afraid, they're vulnerable. It's kind of think about Freddy. Like he comes to you in your dreams, and he goes to your nightmares. The same idea, kind of, except for there's no dreaming. And the idea that each time they were like when the young lady when she was freaked out with her father, everything got bloody and fear brings him closer. It brings your actual anxiety to like a head, and it makes you more vulnerable. Again, I don't know how he eats people, but it was very clear that the less you feared, the more powerful you were.
I think that was said. I
Yeah.
don't think that was, delivered in such a powerful way. Like that, I understood. Like, okay, if you aren't afraid, you're
Right.
okay. And who wouldn't be afraid of Pennywise the clown?
Actually, I'm not afraid of clowns. That's fine. And this was a pretty darn scary clown, but I wasn't afraid of him at all. What I will say is this: if you think about like the first act, each of them came really close. Like Ben in the library, the young man with the photo when he was studying for his bar mitzvah. They came really close, and I'm not quite sure that they internally said like it's not real, and then it stopped. But they each had a moment where they were on the precipice of being eaten.
Yeah.
You know, the African American young man when he's about to see the people coming out of the side door.
Yeah.
All of these just kind of set up their fears, and it showed them almost the limit. Like you basically are seeing how you're going to die if Pennywise gets you. We saw that the little brother, Boats was when he succumbed to death. Like so, and then going forward, it would be the girl with her period. I don't know if it's period or just coming of age.
Oh, I felt that was definitely
I mean, they
related
ended
to her.
on the coming of age.
It was all about her
yeah.
sexuality and her,
womanhood. Okay,
Yeah.
so, and then the protagonist, I'm horrible with names right now. His thing was his brother, and I don't know if they fleshed his. I mean, of course his was the kickoff, the inciting, but I don't know if they went back to it.
I think they
Well,
went back
maybe
to
they
it
did when they
nicely.
went
That
down the
one
steps,
night,
you're
yeah,
right.
that one night where he that light goes on in the kid's room,
Yep.
in the brother's
You're
room,
right.
and he follows those wet footprints down the stairs.
Wait, you're falling in love with it.
I'm not.
You are. But
I
I'm going
liked-
to
I
reiterate
liked-
that every like 3
I
minutes.
liked some of those moments. I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like, do those add up to like a great film?
Yes.
Or is it just like
Oh,
this,
no, it does.
the same like summer schlock and
No,
kind of,
so you're speaking like an industry person. Me, the layman, would say it's just a movie, whether it's a summer blockbuster or it came out in the fall or it came out during Christmas. It doesn't matter. Just the film on itself, where it should have been placed, marketing, execs, that doesn't matter. The fact that we got a sanitized version in the 80s, which my mom actually was afraid of, but I thought it sucked and I didn't finish it. A sanitized version of this over 1,000-page book that is very detailed, very gory, very graphic.
Did you finish? You said you didn't finish this book. I tried to read this
is
book
big.
like 2
I
or
have
3 times in my life.
The attention span of a flea sometimes,
and
especially when
it
I was
is
a kid.
really like sometimes Stephen King can be very good and
He's
evocative.
very descriptive,
And this
for
one
sure.
was just like, it, you know, he gets into this place where I think, you know, he's like rocking and rolling, but it's just...
I'm telling you right now, we're live, and you have to realize he's had 413 pieces of literature that he's written.
Oh, my Lord.
44 films. So don't bash a guy that has that much
Maybe
in
it's
one
too
lifetime.
Much. No, maybe
You
it's
know.
too much. Maybe 1,100 pages is too much. Maybe that's too much. I mean, sometimes you have to like pull it back a little. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And maybe it's like
Well.
in this particular case, when things are like, and you know, I'm even gonna say like while we're talking, like, maybe there is a lack of rationality to childhood fears. Maybe that's some of what's, you know.
What do you mean? Of course there isn't. That's
And,
it's,
but
it's the
like
unknown. Or
but I'm saying as a screenwriter, as you know, somebody who's trying to put together a narrative. I mean, I think like when your rules are so vague, I think when your, you know, motivations for, you know, even like how they got down into this well area and whatever, when it's kind of like, okay, we're just accepting this at every, that this is what happened.
Suspending. Yep.
I kind of think, you know, it leaves you a little empty because it's not grounded. It's not.
Well, let's be clear. Let's be clear that he did not direct it. He wrote the novel. The screenplay was adapted. So in that whole process of adapting, you have 1, 2, 3, a number of writers, you know, a main and possibly more, that say, okay, what do we want to extract from 1,000 pages? And then you have also executives that are going to be like, I don't think that's going to float. How can we work in Apple? Oh, we need more GE showing. There are a lot of people that go into that final script, whose voice goes in that final script. So to blame him, you know.
I'm going to even say that, like, let's
not blame you, I'm just saying, like,
there
the final
was a
choice
1990 film that was made, right? A mini-series with John Ritter and a bunch of people.
See, I liked all the people in it. I just didn't like it.
It was terrible.
It was just
terrible.
And
this
I
was
love
and
all
this
of
was
them.
really much
Better,
more
yeah,
successful.
You're saying it. Yeah, she said
more-
it for the record. She said successful. She's liking it.
It's more
You're
successful
liking
than something terrible, like a terrible.
Well,
version
there
of
we
it.
go. You're liking
Okay.
it.
Okay, Christina.
Thank you. Let's just move on.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the clown for a second, though.
Okay, Pennywise.
Yeah, and you know, going back to this history with Stephen King, I could not help but think about, like, this book came out in the 80s, right?
Yep.
It came out in like 86 or something like that. And the decade before was the decade of John Wayne Gacy. Remember him?
You're going deep.
And I feel like this
That's
is
really
like,
creepy.
you know, this is like what was in Stephen King's mind and on his, you know, and then there was like the
It could've
80s was
totally
all
been.
these movies about this kid is, you know, these kids on a mission, on a trip, on a journey.
And he did Stand By Me. Like,
And
this
he did
wasn't-
Stand By Me.
Sure.
And I think this is like one of those things that really, it's underneath there that I feel like it probably had something to do with it, you know, contextually.
That's deep. I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good call. But here at the base of this, I feel like it's another Stand By Me. And Stand By Me has its, in its own right, you know, I suspect something dealing with, because I read a lot of, like, fan trivia about how he had an incident when he was young about seeing a dead body, you know, and then Stand By Me comes out. So I feel like in the simple lover of Stephen King world, we're taking Stand By Me, we're taking maybe remnants of John Wayne Gacy, or just being an avid horror writer and saying, what if these kids, instead of just seeing the dead body, but they had to deal with their subconscious fears? Now now I'm curious which came out first, Nightmare, I'm referencing again, Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think
or
that was
this.
88.
Okay, that was after.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a really great premise, and it's easier with kids, I think, at the base of the idea, to make kids jump, because we totally get ready to fight or run away or be rational about it. Kids just take things for what they are, and if you're tapping into their subconscious, which they're still trying to understand their identity, that's got to be the scariest thing. And I think iconically, this is going back to Pennywise and what you started. It's like saying, what's all American? Apple pie. What is, like, at the heart of a lot of people, which I don't get, but at the heart of a lot of people's phobia is clowns. There is this whole clown phobia so I think it was a great symbolic piece. Personally, I only think of happiness with clowns, so I think it's a win-win. People that are terribly afraid of clowns, this is going to be effective. People that are not afraid of clowns, they're going to learn how to go there. That's especially the 88 version I wasn't afraid of, but this one I was genuinely afraid of the clown.
The clown is like also this symbol of, you know, how when you're a kid and people are trying to make you laugh or like amuse you and stuff, they put you in front of something that is not amusing at all. And I think the clown is that, you know, ultimate like if you see that, you know, this big man and like all this like grotesque makeup and, you know, big old shoes.
And there's not always smiling clowns. They're definitely
and I think that's what that clown is, but I also feel like that clown is somebody that we're kind of like socialized to be lured in by, you know, the clowns at the circus. That's the you know, the character that's going to draw you into the action. And
that worked with the first scene effectively.
Yeah.
Like, sure.
Yeah.
I think it was a great symbol. Are you thinking it's problematic?
No, I thought it was, you know, I thought it was beautiful, but I was kind of thinking, I was thinking about, you know, where does it fit in? Because it's like I was thinking about, it made me think of John Wayne Gacy, but, you know, moving on.
No, actually, and that fits right in with the whole idea. Now we need to do research on Gacy and see if there's a 27-year tie-in with anything that he did. Maybe he had 27 victims or something there. But yeah, that's brilliant. We should talk about that beforehand. Had it fleshed out now.
No, it was in the 70s. That's all I know is John Wayne Gacy was like, you know, like early 70s. Like that was his decade. Yeah. That was when he was working. And
I don't think working is an appropriate
no,
word.
I don't either. I'm really sorry.
I hear
but that's what was going on. And then, you know, it's like, and so I think for that reason, it's kind of an interesting, it's an interesting symbol. It's an interesting character to kind of hook onto. But moving on.
The number's 33. So I'm still going to do numerology on that.
So not our 27 though. Why is it 27? We don't know. It's maybe the rules of the universe are
maybe
unclear.
When Stephen King was 27, something happened. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So should we do some structure?
Yes. You should do some structure, and I should just listen.
You can pipe in.
I was God's honest truth. When I watched it, I was so in it that there was no structure in my mind. I was in love with it.
Because it was a hot mess.
No.
It was a hot mess. But I'm going to say that the structure, what made it most interesting, is that we really ended on a midpoint. Even though we're going to go through the whole structure as a movie as it stands on its own.
It stands on its own.
But it really ended on a midpoint, basically, because we know the second part is to come where they return, right? Yeah. So we know that this isn't like, it.
No. You know? It could be like a 5. So I just the generic blocks of 1, 2, 3. I thought it presented the town and the kids. I think then it really fleshed out in the phobias in 2, and I think 3 was a little messy in the wells, and I still don't get the whole floating. But then it had a good 3 chase. Bad things happen. I was really worried that there was going to be So, in the book, there is supposedly a sequence at the very end when she's captured, whereas she does have sexual relations with each of the boys. Right. And that's part of the way they kill it with love.
And in this one, he just kisses her to kind of get her out of catatonia.
So that wasn't... Yeah, okay, so breakdown structure. But I did think the 1, 2, 3 fell where it needed to fall, whether it was successful or not.
It did. I mean, it did. But let's go there. Oh, no. So our setup is very swift. It's
good and exciting.
Yeah. Bill and Georgie.
Yeah.
Bill's homesick. Georgie wants to play outside in the rain, and Bill makes him the boat, and we see that beautiful first scene, which is actually, you know, the same with the book, right? No, the same with the book. And it's the same with the 80s
version.
It's actually like a really good first scene.
It's,
And in the movie, there's this really good first scene, and then, like the book,
just stick. So the inciting incident was Georgie.
Yes.
Done well.
Yes, done well.
I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna put done well. DW, hot mess. The more times I get you to say done well, we see how that stacks up.
Please,
Inciting
give me some
incident.
check marks. Yeah.
So, done well.
And then the debate question section is all about, you know, these kids are missing, and you know, and some time has passed between this point and when Georgie went missing, and Bill is kind of haunted by this, so he's like mapping out the sewer system. His dad isn't happy about it.
Are we going to give him like the single protagonist? We're going to call the group the protagonist,
You know,
Fear the
that's-
protagonist, or him the protagonist?
Who do you think changed? Did anyone change in this from beginning to end?
Oh, then it makes me say he's the protagonist because he changed when he had to let go. But I like the group having to address their... I like it as a group protag because they each had to come to it, and they each had to hold on. Like, there couldn't be one guy like, no, I'm going to go to my bat mitzvah. You guys finish that off, and I hope it goes well. They all had to go through it together.
I think I agree with you. I think that's right, because, you know, why spend all this time like talking about each of their fears if they're not important?
Yep.
So I'm going to go with that. That is a group, that is a collective protagonist. And basically in this section we're also seeing like Pennywise the clown appearing to these children, and these children are being tormented by many things, like other kids, grown-ups, and
they're kids, they're adolescents.
Yeah.
This is, and if you look at with the love triangle, with the hypochondriac,
right.
with the Jewish bar mitzvah student, am I missing? Only one that doesn't have a big turning point, I think, is the smart Alec, although I love him. I love him with the glasses from Stranger Things. But they each had an adolescent turning point.
He had a little bit of a turning point, and I think it's like Richie, he didn't believe, because for the longest time he was the only one who hadn't seen the clown, right? And
was he the last one to see?
He's the last one, because he goes into the room with all the clowns. There's a theory online. We are getting word.
TV series was 30
TV series was 30 years.
years.
Yep.
But it's been 27 years since that series.
27 years since.
1990, 2017, 27 years.
That's the 27 years.
Otherwise, it would have been 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so disappointing.
No, that's actually wonderful, because that shows the writers are adding a little bit of the current movie's mythology. I mean, conceptually. I like it. Don't be depressed about that. That's actually not a bad thing.
That was such a god-awful movie. I mean, it was like terrible. It was
You
like,
go back to a generic god-awful when you know you love it, so I'm just not listening to you anymore.
Okay, you want to see John Ritter and...
Oh, the original. Okay. we're
That's
on
what
the
I'm
same
saying.
one.
That's
Okay.
27 years
Well,
since
here's the thing.
that movie.
Here, what I will give credit for, because I know there are probably people out there that really did like it. Each of those actors were genuinely, I like them. My whole problem with the earlier version, and it was of its time, the gentleman from Night Court, he was a hot actor. John Ritter was a hot actor.
Yeah.
The problem was it wasn't scary. The problem was that you're talking about a really, like I said, an awfully dark story that got sanitized by ABC.
No, and it was, you know, sometimes things are too faithful.
That's
you
like
know?
saying I want a PG version of Saw.
No.
You know, you can't.
I'm gonna say no.
You
I'm gonna
can't blame
say,
the writers, and they're like, just take out the blood in that scene and don't cut her hands off. Let's just give her a mark there and.
Oh,
make her
nobody
straight.
is saying that,
But I'm saying, if you
Christina.
look,
Oh,
at
come
how
on.
generic it was. I could watch it as a kid. If it can
It
go on
was.
broadcast,
It was on
prime
broadcast.
time.
Yeah,
that
and it was
means kids
miniseries.
can see
Yeah.
it. That means you weren't the most you got, and that probably was a push. That was probably a fight where someone threw a coffee pot in the office saying, "I want like the rows of teeth." They're probably like, just give them a couple fangs.
I think here's
You
the
have
thing
to
is that, you
give
know, there
credit
are
that
ways
they
to do
fought.
this. There are ways to,
How
like,
would you do it then? If you had pick any Stephen King right now, and right now not Netflix, because they would probably let you do whatever you wanted, or HBO. But if NBC said you can remake, no, Misery's too easy to do. Something hard. Christine, you can make Christine, but we don't want any blood. No, Christine's easy too, because it wasn't.
no, I'm not gonna.
The idea is like you are not giving them the fight that they had to fight for broadcast. That's the big coup here. is that it's a movie and it can be rated R. This needed to be rated R.
Amityville Horror was TV.
Yeah, but that was 70s. We got blood on the walls. That wouldn't have happened on ABC. Amityville would not have happened.
Yeah, I think, this is the tricky thing, is that, with especially somebody like Stephen King, it's like, this is a master storyteller.
Yep.
So I think people are going to put a lot of stock in the story as it's told.
Yep.
But I would say, side note, the best Stephen King is The Shining. The best Stephen King
Misery is the
on
best
film
Stephen King.
is The Shining.
Misery.
And Stephen King hated it
Then
for a long
Shining.
time. I mean, he came around.
Yeah.
But that is a story that for him was about alcoholism, right?
Yep.
For him, it was about something very,
At least
and it was
it's said.
it was in there in Kubrick's version.
Yep.
But it was not the heart of it, and in a way, I mean. Did you miss it? No. Did you realize this person had a drinking problem?
So
Absolutely, because that's why
That goes back to saying, like, at the heart of it was balloons. No, it wasn't.
That is
alcoholism.
Not what,
No,
my
it's
God.
not
It's
alcoholism.
outrageous. That's the
It
most
was-
outrageous thing you've said tonight.
I'm saying it because alcoholism is a symptom of something deeper. Having an alcohol problem is the same thing as having a cigarette problem or drug problem. It's kind of like your dependency issue. I'm talking about the psychological. There's a deeper level to it, and I will give you, The Shining was strong about dependency level and isolation. And what him being in his own
what
mind.
you play up, right? But
True.
I think sometimes, people stick to the source material.
Yep.
And maybe not for the better. I think it is ultimately probably unfilmable, if you ask me. The story is there's so much going on. The traveling through time, all of it. It's a big knotty screenwriting problem to begin with.
Gosh darn it.
But
Okay. I got a hot mess for me, so I'm noting it. I'm not.
And
trying to
I'm
be
just
unfair.
saying, like, it was not. This was a better version, but it wasn't. It wasn't terribly deep. Let's say it wasn't like it. It didn't bring another element to this story. Like The Shining brought that feeling of, that the air, the isolation, all of that stuff that was in the book. I mean, it was just heightened as much as possible visually. And there were a lot of things that happened, whereas this is like
set piece of that hotel was beautiful. The set, so Shining is not fair because that's a beautiful hotel they worked within.
But would another filmmaker have done? No, that was Kubrick.
Okay, I love Kubrick, so I'm not going to fight you on Kubrick. You win on that.
It wasn't the hotel, babe.
Okay, but here's the thing: if we were in the shoes of the writers that did this, and that's not trying to make any big stand there, I applaud the fact that they looked at this book. They said, okay, here's some crazy evil stuff. Here's some courtroom drama. Here's some intergalactic. What are we going to pick out of this? Then they probably, after reading this book, said, okay, let's look at the 80s version. That sucked it. So what went wrong there? They didn't do the horror. They didn't do this. I think they went through a list of things that needed to be in here as homage for the Stephen King fans, to make him happy, what made sense. I think it was a smart thing to ditch the whole kind of sci-fi aspect. I think they scored big in the relationships. I think this is just a more graphic version of Stand By Me. It's about the how the kids work together, how they got along. You present their fears, you make them work together, you see how they work through it. Also, we have to talk about, or we could mention here, is 12, 13, 14, everything's going wrong in our bodies. Everything's tingling, everything's growing hair, everything is embarrassing. So that's like, I feel like if they had set a rule that it had to be 13 when they take them, because that's when you're all messed up, that makes sense, because that's when you question everything about yourself. That's when it's easier to get deep under your skin. I thought that was brilliant. So if you just stick to the fact that this group of friends has to dig deep, bond together, and overcome their fears, it's a good movie. It's deeper than your average horror movie. They're not just relying on a spooky clown to be like, oh, I'm a serial killer, oh, I'm this. This is about those kids. Those kids sold it. I believe their phobias. I believe their camaraderie. And I think it's like a dark Stand By Me. And if I had been lucky enough to have been a writer, I would have probably agreed with almost every selection, every idea that they extracted. If you wanted the intergalactic spider, power to you. There was in the book.
Yeah.
That
was
glowed.
There in the 1990
exactly.
version. It was
glowed
there.
and flew off. But
I
like their choices, and I'm excited to see who the adults are going to be.
Did Stephen King do drugs?
Didn't everybody?
No, I'm saying did he?
I don't know. I you know what it is. I'm looking at a number 413, and I'm looking at the fact that I've written one thing in the last how many months, and he probably cranks out like how many a year,
so
and it's impressive. And here, let's give credit to people that option or say let's put money down for his work. He's had 413 pieces of work written. There have been this can't be right. I think another site said 56 movies made of his work. So obviously people are selecting the stronger material.
Yeah.
Not everything. Nothing against Stephen King because he's brilliant, but like to what you said, not everything is going to be
top notch.
Yep.
Sure. So we're still at the kids are tormented, blah, blah, blah. And they're also being bullied. And I believe the break into 2 happens when the big bully, Patrick, buys it in the tunnel.
When Ben meets the group because they're happy.
Yeah, they're chasing Ben, and Patrick goes in. And what's really it was a weird moment, right? So Patrick's in the tunnel. And
that was a great exchange again.
All of a sudden, the kids scare him, and you don't know whether they're
actually Ben scares them when he enters, falling in the water when they're talking about the hygiene of going down this tunnel.
Well, but I'm saying at that moment when Patrick kind of is lost in this labyrinth, right?
Yeah.
And the kids all of a sudden show up as a group, weirdly zombied out, right?
Now I'm forgetting that. No.
Yeah, they show up, and Patrick sees them, freaks out. He turns around and runs into and meets his end with Pennywise, right?
No, but that's not the kids. Those are other kids.
Or you think that's
those are other floaters. Those are old.
No.
Pennywise.
I saw Ben in that front row. I know those kids were those kids, and it was a very interesting choice.
Those weren't those kids.
It was the kids.
No, there wasn't. Those were just zombies. Because one was a woman. Yeah, that's not them.
Really?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I thought it was those kids, and I was like,
so
whoa.
You were so into it? You were so into it? No, but because those, and then that's when he sets his face on fire. He turns around. We're spoiling here. Yeah, no, those were some of his floaters. Yeah, right.
Spoiler alert. A little
Spoiler
delayed.
alert.
We're
Yeah,
a little
no, those
delayed
are.
with those.
He pulled a couple floaters down to snap. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, our B story is Beverly. Beverly's all about she is that B story. She's everybody's
the love
love
triangle.
Yeah, the love interest, and she herself is tormented by her father, who's
No, but everybody has a torment. That can't be the B story. Everybody has
she's
the
the
love
B
triangle, though.
She's the B story.
You really. I adore her. I fell in love with that actress. She was
good.
Believable.
She was good. I agree with you that these performances were good.
Yep.
I mean, some of the dialogue was lame, but whatever.
I also think within the B story, God, I'm giving more credit to the writers. Love triangle with pubescent kids can be so cliche after cliche, but the way they played him breaking they got introduced by him breaking his set, and I love the fact, and I don't know if it happened on purpose, he walks away with his bike and he's dragging his headphones. I was like, that's real.
That kid was the best
New Kids on the Block when she pulls that over, and they had that moment where she's like, okay, I'll keep your secrets safe. You got the right one.
Yeah.
That was good
Very
writing.
Sweet.
It was believable, and it would be so easy to be like, oh, you like her? It could have been so horrible, but it was so well. And to the writers, it was intelligent. It wasn't silly kids. Every single one of those kids was intelligent.
Right.
I'll put it to you this way: I love my daughter, but I don't know if my daughter would have made as wise choices. I think because she's too young, but also
she's very young.
She's 8.
Like
they're
about
13.
Half their age. Yeah.
But it was well written, and it wasn't just we got lucky, these are good actors. It was well-crafted relationships
Right.
that made that believable. Because if that hadn't been solid, we wouldn't be here. I would have just been like, I'm not even doing this.
Right.
So
Our fun and games, it's like
Oh, that's
basically it's all of this, all these children, all of the losers have some encounter with Pennywise. I mean, that's the fun and games of it. And in between all of this is Ben. Ben is like researching the town of Derry.
Right.
Ben realizes that Pennywise feeds every 27 years because he's in the library and he sees like these weird events happen every 27 years. And they are, and there's some interesting stuff here, you know, like, so they plant the thing about everyone who signed that charter for the town disappeared, and the trail led to the well house. Then when we have that great scene in the garage, which with the slideshows, going bananas, and for some reason Pennywise not coming, you know, and killing them all. Bill has mapped out the entire town, and he also agrees that everything is leading to this place.
Well, hold on. Let's back up. When we talked about the break into the second act, I feel like it was very blurry, but I feel like if we're going with the group dynamic as protagonists, that their decision to go help Billy find Georgie, or to find the missing kids, or to take the journey to figure out the missing kids, I feel like that was kind of like the beginning of the journey. Because they were all having their own separate incidences, but it wasn't until he's like, I need to do this, I think this is happening.
And there was a good line there. There was a good line of dialogue there where
Which
Bill
one?
said, it's easier for me to walk into this house than my own.
Yeah, that was a good line.
You know, and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't so terrible. So there was one.
Good lines.
Put a check mark.
I know.
And then they go to the well house where they're separated, and they all kind of
feel like that's a
see
crazy
their.
midpoint.
And this is what I'm saying. Like that whole section is so heavy.
It's muddy because
it's so heavy.
I think
with
they were trying
all
to bring
of
up
their
the rear with
fears.
all of the
It's
phobias.
so much, and it's like, can we streamline?
Because
you
actually said that we hadn't had Richie. He was the smart aleck. He was the only one who hadn't had the balloon incident.
Right.
So he was the only one that had. And I have to say, his was the best. That clown sequence.
It was great.
That
it was
was
great.
And then the casket. That was
and his
pretty.
missing poster. He got some of the nicest set pieces. We're gonna say yes.
Did
Yeah.
So
ultimately.
bringing up the rear, he brought it with his sequence. So at this point we're
The original Pennywise is in that scene.
What?
The original?
The original.
The one with all the clowns.
with all the clowns.
Right
They
by
have
the
his.
casket is Pennywise.
I did. You're right. I did see it. Homage. We love you, Tim Curry. Yeah. I do
I didn't
remember
notice that. I
Yeah.
didn't notice
Left
that.
the casket, yeah.
Oh, the
He-
real
I don't. I
Pennywise.
remember seeing it, but I.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, it's all
Things
good.
to note. Things to note. The midpoint is they somehow chase Pennywise into the well.
I thought the midpoint was when they kind of pseudo kill him at the house to
They
kind of
kinda-
get out.
Where he goes, he slips
Oh,
back
yeah,
into the well.
okay,
We're
so
saying
they're-
the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Bad guys close in. It's really, again, all the parents. Now here we get back to the
this
real
is
world.
True. Why are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
I'm a good mom.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think
yes.
you're right.
Yes.
Because after this, it seems like all the rational adults or creepy.
They're terrible.
Descend.
Some terrible parenting.
But wait, do we
going
ever
on.
see Ben's family?
No.
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 And the African American young man, his parents are dead.
Yeah, they died in a fire.
The Jewish young man, his father is a rabbi, so we meet him once.
Yeah.
And then at the end with the bar mitzvah, it's more about the hypochondriac's mom, and
Yeah.
then the creepster dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
So we
And they
see
do
all of that,
descend,
and then
you're
there's
right.
this. There's that kid, the bully, Henry.
That is
His
the only
dad
problem.
is like
Wait,
all of a sudden we
so
have
that-
this
you went
weird
at
subplot.
one point. Yes,
Like
yes.
I think somebody just was like, "This is too cool," because
No.
he's like watching the show, and we see that sewer show, that weird children's sewer
Oh, it's like
show.
kill her, kill him,
Yeah.
kill him.
And-
Oh my God, it's like Mr. Rogers on crack or
And
something.
that is like
That was very
creepypasta
creepy.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff from now. Like that's very much like
700 Club ish.
There's this
That's
there's this very famous creepypasta that is something Return to Cove Lane, like if you've ever heard that.
No.
And it's like this TV show that was on for a certain amount of time in a certain town, and only the kids could see it.
Wait, I do.
And
I
the
think
adults
I
would
remember
find
that.
these kids, and they were watching like basically snow
Yeah.
on the television.
That was like on
and they
Sci-Fi
were,
Channel, I think.
no, it's a story. It's a story on
No,
that.
Sci-Fi did.
It did. Oh yes,
Remember?
Yes. I saw.
Yeah.
You're good.
We're having a moment.
We're having a moment. We both saw the same shitty movie.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
So,
So, and I think that was this thing that was so compelling, where you
did
have
you
this
think that was
scene-
compelling? I thought that was just a fun little moment.
Yeah, but why do we need a subplot with
why do
Henry
we need
the mullet?
bullied? That's
You know,
I will
Henry
give
and
you
his
one
mullet.
one down that I officially call it down is that the whole idea of the bully. That's fine, and that's part of a Stand By Me premise. The whole idea, adolescents, you had to fight your bully, but he didn't serve a purpose. Even when he came in the well, he's like and he fell down the well.
Yeah, and he exactly. So that's the all is lost moment, is when he struggled when they go back to the
With
well.
the gun.
He is watching them after he's killed his father. For some reason, he's killed his father, and he's still on these kids. I don't know.
But he's possessed. And,
He's possessed.
And this is a rule that wasn't introduced. They didn't introduce like, oh, if you're really mean, then it's easier for Pennywise to possess you. And unless we're making, bullies. We're gonna, so unless father was mean too, was Pennywise a little bit in him. Big hypochondriac mom was really hardcore. Was she? So if are we asserting possibly the rule was the more evil you are, the more possessed you are by Pennywise?
We
or
would
something?
have to
You know what I mean? 'Cause-
extrapolate all of this, and that's the problem.
that's just the thing,
There are
the
no
bully had
rules to
no-
the universe. The rules for the universe are like very sketchy.
Yep, I agree.
Very sketchy.
I want to hear his comment.
They were giving them physical, real-world reasons to build their own courage first. They have to start killing their first fear before they get into their actual fear, and that's when they started getting strong enough to break their fear against Pennywise.
So the real fear has to be overcome before you can deal with the irrational or the Pennywise fear.
Okay, so she
So you have to stand up
bumped
to
her
your
dad.
parent. She has to she has
Stood
to
up
beat
to
up.
his-
And he's got to stand up to his mom.
The kid
mullet kid's
killed-
got to kill his dad for some reason.
Oh my. But you didn't really introduce him till late, and you used him as a prop.
and he was definitely not on the
I don't
side.
know about
like,
that.
Putting him in with everybody is like. It's
I wish
just
someone had
weird-
given him a hug, and he would have been like a good guy. No, I don't know.
It feels
was-
like
it
a
was
tangent.
off. Yeah,
it feels
felt
like a tangent.
prop,
but he is the all is lost moment when he is killed, when he falls into the well.
Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought the all is lost moment was when she had to kill her father.
I don't know that she killed her father. She hit him with the top of the toilet.
Because she goes live with her aunt at the end.
Yeah,
I feel
but
like
maybe
she
she
took
told.
him out.
She could have been like. She didn't ever say, "I can't believe I killed my dad." I mean, it was all business as usual after she got out of the house, right?
Yeah, and that's not explained. It's like, I'm just gonna live with my aunt. Is your dad dead?
No,
Did
I think
you
maybe-
pass
I think
child
she-
services?
Yeah, I think she probably came out and said, "I can't live with this person anymore."
I kind of thought
and-
he was dead for a moment there. Okay, well,
I mean,
I feel like her getting. See, the thing was they
they
dealt,
didn't take a pulse.
They-
Okay,
Okay,
they didn't take
this
a
is
pulse
true.
on the dad.
I'm gonna give you that, but I feel like at this point, her getting caught was the all is lost, because they could have been in the clear, but they're not, because now they have to ultimately go back in for
Kill
the
the
big
monster. Yeah. So, Dark Night of the Soul is again more confrontations, and Bev is taken
one. Yeah, that
with
could.
light this time, which
the glowy eyes.
I didn't know that was a way she could be taken. He's never taken.
That's when we
anyone like
realized
before.
that, like, okay, so here's the thing.
You're going to go back to the book. Now we're going to go to the source material where that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but they had to. Okay, so I think there's like, okay, we're dealing with 13-year-old kids. Do we want to have them come down to the bottom of this well, where the hearth of his spot, and have like a mound of dead, bloody bodies? That's too dark. Let's have them floating. It'll give a little love to the book and the whole sci-fi, intergalactic, demon from another planet. But it won't like creep out the parents that by accident brought their 13-year-old to see this. Because I was on the fence about bringing Harley. So glad I didn't. But I think you have to leverage that. This was a soft R, not a hardcore R. You know what I mean? This isn't a Games of Thrones R where there would have been just a pile of dead bodies. They wouldn't have cared about them floating or whatever. And she probably, well, they can't kill her off, but she would have come really close to death, or something really genuinely creepy would have happened to her. I think they just played the lighter version.
So it's light.
Yeah.
And they find her and they revive her with a kiss.
Oh,
One kiss from
whatever.
Ben, and she's like, oh.
Wait, Ben, wait, who gave her the kiss?
Ben gives her the kiss, which I thought was nice.
I was rooting for that all
because
along.
you know that was
yeah.
what was important about that is he was the only smart one who would have had the presence of mind. It's like, oh, in this irrational universe, let's do the Snow White Sleeping Beauty.
Ben was the smartest one. Yeah,
all of a sudden she turns into this character from a fairy tale. So
she has her moment. I think that's cool.
Our break into 3 is when they're down there. Bill has to kill Georgie because he knows it's Pennywise in disguise. But
that's not our break into 3. That's the final conflict. I feel like it's before that. I feel like when they get into the well and they start, and I'm like, dudes, do you guys watch horror? Why are you all splitting up? You know what I mean? Like he gets them to go in different ways. I felt like that was a break into 3 because now that's
too dispersed to be a break into 3.
Wait, doesn't she wake
up? The
up?
break into 3 is got to be a conquering of a fear, right? When Bill goes against what is happening inside him, his own mind and heart and soul that wants to believe that this is his brother. He knows he has to be strong, and he knows that that's not his brother. His brother is gone.
That's a final moment.
That is a break into 3. And then Pennywise comes out, and he tries to make this deal, like he'll just take Bill, and then he'll sleep. That's the deal.
I kind of like the idea of the deal, but I feel like
the gang is like, no, we're gonna beat him. His skull is gonna open, and all the fears are gonna come out.
Yeah.
For whatever, and they know that that's what it is when this light comes out. It's like it's the fear. And
there we could have spent some money on CG and had souls come out of his head or something.
And somebody says, now you're afraid because you're going to starve. Now.
So again, that goes back to souls. Are we talking? I
feel like that's
what we're talking about.
Something. That's attacked on something.
I feel like he's eating souls. He's not eating bodies because we got all the floaters.
So the kids float down. He's
souls keep him nourished.
Yeah, kids float down. He goes into the well. There's this circle of love. Bev's leaving for Portland. Bill and Bev kiss.
But here's the thing,
And he watches her leave, and that's our last image.
Yeah, because I want Ben and Bev to kiss. But here's the thing. I want the rule. Not that this isn't amazing. Amazing. I want the rule that, this is going to sound really creepy. Like, the minute his head explodes, I want all the bodies to drop. Because now they're officially just dead.
But I don't think they want him to be dead, and I think this is the problem.
Well, at least he's just going to be a little anorexic until 27 years from now.
There's a voiceover here, right? I feel like, did I imagine it? I think
Not during that.
I think there's a voiceover, no? And I think he's imagining them from. He says something about, I imagine us now, now that we're our parents' age, or something like that, at the end. And I was kind of like, oh no, this is another element that I have to deal with.
Well, you knew it was a part 1.
I did.
So
I did.
I'm just super happy too that they didn't try to shove it all into one movie. Kind of, do kind of Lars von Trier, boom, 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 we're going to give you part 1 and part 2 right now in one felt swoop. They let us chew on, and they let the characters of the first half get fleshed out.
Yeah, but they kind of knew that they didn't kill the clown, right?
I think
they knew.
They did what they did in the book. They did what they did in the old movie, this movie. They made a blood pact, which that's kind of old school, the whole kind of. But they made a blood pact. If it happens, we'll come back. So, and supposedly the African American young man stays in the city.
Exactly.
And he kind of documents what happens and tells everybody he's coming back. You guys got to come back.
Right.
Well, not to spoil the next one, but yeah. So
but they have to come back.
They have to come back.
Yeah.
So it seems like you liked it more than you didn't like it. Just, yeah. Just saying.
Okay, do we want to talk about any kind of anything that
So used to David being
I
here,
know.
like guiding things.
David really would have guided this? But
He asked all
do
the
you want to
questions.
talk about anything in terms of the Stephen King oeuvre, how this fits in, how it, how
I-
successful it is in your mind compared to the other Stephen King properties that we've seen on film?
I'm literally sitting here with a list of all of his movies, and I'm checking off every single one that I've seen. And so what I can say, and I don't know how people select. I think it would be fair enough to say I wish I had the patience to have read all of his work, just to say, oh, well, why haven't they picked that or picked this? There's some things in Nightstand I remember as a kid, because I came to his work, buying books from vintage.
Yeah.
That him and V.C. Andrew were the tops, but he was more gorier, so
Yeah.
I tend to fall in love with his writing. What I think surprised a lot of people, like when you hit The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption, is he's a great storyteller. Mm-hmm. He's a detailed, great storyteller. So we are blessed that he loves horror, but in general, he tells a good rounded story. Maybe some say too long. I kind of agree because I didn't finish it. Mm-hmm. But at the core of his writing, he's a great writer. He's a great beginning, middle, and end. A lot of times, I look at all of the things that this is right now, literally, of his work from Cary on, and you just see great stories. A lot of times about loners or people with regret. Christine, Cary, and we all know the story about Cary. It wasn't biting. He threw it away. His wife took it out of the trash.
Yeah.
And
that's
because she saw the vision that we get to share now, and it leads to the fact that he doesn't do gratuitous. Everything has a reason. It's coming usually much deeper, really grounded in character, not set pieces, but usually when people buy or option stuff, they want to recreate their version of Maine in some glorious way. Mm-hmm. But all of his stuff is pretty much character based. So when you get on board with Stephen King, if he gives you blood, yeah, but you're not getting I don't want to say Night of the Living Dead. You're not getting a Return of the Living Dead. You're not getting a Saw where you don't really care about your characters. You just want to see how they get killed. That's not the kind of material that he puts out there. And if you're not ready to get invested in people, then you're not going to really ever take to Stephen King, because all of his stories are about people. Troubled people, broken people, introverts, nerds, but his world...
And in this one, don't you think there are too many people?
No. On the whole...
On the screen. See,
No.
in the confines of a novel, and I would say with the vastness of your mind when you're reading a novel, the stage is much larger, like what you can take in and how many people you can get invested in. But this was like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I think it was a lot to put in to 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it was so much that there was a bit of tedium that set in.
I think it was... Okay, here's the thing. You're talking about, and if we look back at the 80s, and I guess we didn't even bring this up, the 80s version had a bunch of white people, mm-hmm. and you're a token black person.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks. And I can't speak to if that's par exactly on point for the novel, but what I did like now, I like the Jewish representation. I would have loved a Latina in there as well. I would have loved if Bev was a Latina. That would have made me super happy. Like those courageous choices
that you make that would have kind of given this world more texture.
Yep. Yeah. Coming from two brown girls.
Yes. Here we are.
So,
yeah.
But you also, be quite honest, a lot of times, especially writers with this much work, you write what you know.
Yeah.
And you build your world out from there. So maybe Stephen King just needs to hang out in the hood a little bit more, take more vacations. But I'm not hating on him, because still, going back to the whole character plot, a lot of things like subconscious fears are universal.
Yeah.
So even though it's maybe all white kids that go through them, there are a bunch of black kids that have the same fears, a bunch of Latinas that have the same fears, Asian girls that have the same fears. These aren't things that are only germane to the Caucasian population. It's just, it would be neat to see how a Latina addresses her father that's being seedy, or see maybe an Asian boy fighting with his phobia, you know, because that would have had, again, a dimensionality to like a culture, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is
a lead that
sometimes
was an Indian, that would be like, what?
I would be down for that.
I would be there too.
but yeah, but I think that's what we're saying is like sometimes these really faithful representations kind of they seem a little hollow. They don't add, they don't subtract. They're just, you know.
I will give you the casting choice. Loved all the kids, but that would have just been like a knock my socks off. That would have just shown like this is a 2017,
and we've evolved a little bit.
And Hollywood is trying, you know. Well, yeah.
So I think
Where are we
that's.
at time-wise?
I think we're good time wise. I think we should just maybe wrap it up with last thoughts if you have any.
I'm super happy you're in love with it and you're on board. The writers did a great job. Alka loves it now. I can't even. We should go see it tomorrow.
Christina is a very persuasive advocate for this movie, and
you're dressing like Cary. I call this the Cary homage.
This is my Piper Laurie.
The Piper Laurie look. So gosh darn it, you could sit up and jump on a podcast and say, oh, it sucks, or they did a bad job, but you're not sitting there writing 1,000 pages. You're not sitting there with the option of 1,000 pages saying, what should we take to make the writer happy, the audience happy, the studio's happy. They had a lot of big choices, and I think they did a good job at the end of the day.
I think what they streamlined was the time frame.
Yep.
I think that's the only thing they streamlined, and I felt like there could have been more in terms of how they told the story. And you know, Cary Fukunaga made, this is like totally
I'm thinking he's
off topic, but Cary Fukunaga
artist.
made the most recent Jane Eyre, I believe.
Yep.
And I love Jane Eyre. I will watch any kind of Jane Eyre, any casting and
You're
anything. It's like if I see Jane Eyre on like
kinda.
PBS, if I see it in the movie, I will watch it. I will watch it no matter what.
You'll be doing
and
that without me.
And he did something very. No, I will not. You are going to.
I'm not
You are
watching
going
Jane
to the
Eyre
next
here.
one.
Okay.
But he did something very interesting with Jane Eyre, which is he actually pulled the midpoint out, and in his version, like he began at the midpoint, where you know, I thought it was like really, really daring, and the first time I saw it, I wasn't quite sure like whether I agreed with the choice right away. I was just like, oh, they're starting there, and I think that I kept hoping, you know, when I saw his name, I was like, oh, you know, maybe they're gonna, because this does involve time, and time is the thing that kind of makes it unfilmable in a way, and makes it kind of it makes it unwieldy, right? The timing of because in the novel it goes back and forth, and you know it's hard to do that. And the 1990 miniseries, they tried to do it exactly the way it was written.
Sure.
And I think, you know, that's what I was hoping for, is some kind of courage to pull that thing out, whatever the heart.
You don't think he did with this? I think. Okay, yes, he didn't.
There was heart in this. I'm not going to say there was, but to like really squeeze like the heart out, or the, you know, get at the marrow of the thing. And I don't think they got to the. They had a lot of, you know, they had a lot of fun with it. And now this director directed Mama, which I liked a lot. Did you like it? Or you don't like the Mama movies, do you?
Yeah, I liked it.
I really liked
Jessica Chastain, right?
Yes, I really liked that.
Maybe I just didn't like her dark hair. I don't know.
No, that was a great.
That was good. Well, that just shows you, you know, it shows you his attention to detail with characters. I think.
But there was a simplicity in that story, right? There were these girls.
You really loved Mama?
Oh, I loved it. There were these like feral children. I am so down
They
for
were
that.
just weird, creepy.
There was one that
But
was
you like
really
Good Night
feral,
Mama too, so
and then there
I
was
don't
one
know.
that was like ready to be socialized, and you know, there was just like all this great tension. And Jessica Chastain didn't want to be a mom. She didn't want. She was saddled with these kids because, you know, her boyfriend was like their uncle, their only living relative. I mean, there were a lot of really amazing things in that narrative.
Yep.
And I thought it was really beautifully told. I just didn't feel this. I didn't feel you know, I didn't feel anything, really.
But you know what? You're dealing. I think it's just different. I think you weren't able to get into the shoes of being a kid again.
Because it was this thing, then the next thing, then here's this one's fear, here's this one's fear, and it was all kind of piled on in a very kind of symmetrical way. Like it was like, just like they were just putting everything on the shelf with everything else.
I think it was a lovely, well paced. I think it was very melancholy to the whole idea of being an adolescent. I think like even the scene after they finished swimming, there were so many beautiful nuanced scenes that represented who these kids were. They didn't just say, hey, I have a cool line, you have a cool line, it's done. There was nuance, like who could spit further, you know? And then the girl runs and jumps in. Or when they're all laying and drying off and like it's dead silent, every kid's petrified, and you're like, why are they petrified?
But then there's young MC.
Until you see her. No, until you see her like sunbathing and you realize, oh yeah, these are pubescent boys. I think there were some moments. I think there were moments that were meant to represent these kids without hitting you over the head. You gently became friends with them. And that's what I think. I don't think it was so heavy-handed or so methodical like ABC. I think it was just like saying, hey, like this kid because he's cute. That's what everyone usually does. They give us a Home Alone. Says, I'm too cute, you have to love me in the first scene. No, you don't love these kids, but moment after moment, you see that moment when you're playing with a boy and it's weird, or you see that moment when you're digging someone, or when you like a band that no one else likes, so you do it. All of these things are tapping into our childhood.
Well, I think this cast, you and I will agree with this is a great cast. This is what actually made it, like, brought it up a notch.
Agreed.
I think with anybody different, it might not have even worked as well, you know, as little as it did for me, as much as it did for you.
Sure.
And I said earlier, we were going to fight. We were going to disagree. And look what happened.
Why did you do that?
So I am a fortune teller. Next time I'm going to be here with my crystal ball.
I can't.
And
you like feral kids. I like loving kids that are nuanced.
I'll take the feral kids anytime.
You keep your feral
kids.
Authentic. Except for women, those were good feral. That was good. Okay, yeah.
So thank you, Christina.
You did a great job, Alka.
You did a great job, and we survived without David. Yeah, David. And we would like to thank Adorama and Seth Miranda. The script is produced by David Negrin, edited by Zoe Alexander. Reminder that if you like this Script podcast, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes and subscribe to the Script YouTube channel. Our Facebook page is NYC Screenwriters Collective. Follow us on Twitter at ScriptFeed. You can support the Script podcast at patreon.com/thescript. Thanks very much.
Yay! Yeah. We're going to do it. That's it. We're going to do it too, Brown.